Welcome to the Freedom Podcast. I'm back here with G and got him in Raleigh, North Carolina.
And for the second time together like this, Josh.
I know, it's great. I mean, we recorded the other one just now, but we thought we'd get 2 episodes done in one go.
I thought we were having a coffee in between, but it's like this guy's working me hard.
I know, I just thought, let's keep rolling. We're on a roll.
We're making the most of it, trying to be fruitful.
Aren't we? G, I wanted to talk to you about in this podcast. I actually got asked a question I had someone who came towards me. So I just finished preaching, and I turned around and I saw they were a new person, and I hello and introduced myself. Actually, I spoke to them before the message, so it was right at the start of church. Saw they were new. They were sat by themselves. Said hello. Just welcoming them. And then they grabbed me at the end of the message and they said, I've got some questions. And they asked a whole range of things. I was there for about 15, 20 minutes maybe with her. And she was drilling me about all these different things she wanted to know about the church. And so I answered the questions the best I could. I think she asked me at one point, she said, how would you explain the gospel? And I was like, well, I literally just did at the end. I kind of explained what the gospel is, but it was like I felt like I was at a test at school. I was like, wow, the gospel is, go through the whole thing. But it was a very interesting conversation. But one of the questions she asked, and by the way, she never came back after that. So I must have...
I was going to say, did she ever come back? Because often the people who ask the questions like that, you don't normally see them. Because it's almost... If someone's coming a quiz like that, they're already looking for something, or there's an agenda that's not always. You didn't fit. You obviously didn't answer the questions well enough, Josh.
No, and it's actually though unfathomable, like how many people we meet all the time. And I was thinking about you and H, and about because I in the last our church has grown here in Raleigh, the amount of new people we see every week that we're having conversations with, and then. That there's such a high turnover of people. So in the US, I saw the statistic that said that out of all the people that had come as a VIP, a first-time guest, the normal return rate on those new people is 10 to 20%.
Wow.
So I'm thinking sometimes like, with all the people we see coming to church, man, maybe they didn't like my message, and you have some great conversations with people where it's like they seem like, wow, this is what we've been looking for and I loved it, and then you never see them again. You're like, that was strange. But actually for the US at least, it's a really normal phenomenon where people can end up coming and checking it out. And I think especially kind of with a church shopping culture, where they go from one place to another and there's this kind of consumer mentality. But what's really interesting, because we see a lot of people come into our church here in the US through social media, through Google. And one of the things that's very different is when you get personal invitations. Mm. So instead of, you're just turning up at a random place, but when you're coming to your friend's church and they introduce you to people, it's a completely different relationship and connection. Mm. And so I think that first-time guest is much more likely to return if they had a good experience, because their friend's going to be saying, hey, you coming back again next week?
Absolutely. And I think also, though, it's realizing we're in a world right now where people are cautious of commitment, cautious to commit. And you'll see that within marriage. People wanting to get married less than ever.
Absolutely.
People sticking out the commitment of marriage less than ever. There is almost some sort of reluctancy to commit to things. People want an opt-out.
Yeah.
It's just this sort of resistance, because when you commit, there's accountability.
Yeah.
So people today, and they want to be able to look on, and that's why we know that a lot of people today will check us out online, which is great that we have online, and they might watch 1 or 2 services online before they step foot physically into the room, because they're checking out, because there is a reluctance to commit. Whereas obviously years ago, I think it was more common to, hey, we're going to go along, and we met these people in church, and we felt this was a great community, and it's healthy, so we're almost going to be bold to commit. We're just going to step in. It's more natural. And I think that has somehow eroded.
Yes, I agree.
So people now, they'll shop more. They'll stand back from a distance on a screen more. There isn't the same conviction to root in. There's more. Do you know, it's fine to go and visit a dozen churches. And we've seen this more and more, even back in the UK, where people say, well, we're going around to all the churches. and then there's like, we're going to take a few months, because there's a reluctancy to commit, because then there's accountability. And I think as human beings, that within us is a step out. But God says all the time, who flourishes, who grows, is those that are planted. It's like, talks about the oak trees, those that are planted in the house of the Lord, not sort of turn up, in the plant pot. In the last podcast we just did, we mentioned about being pot bound. And it is the way I see some people is they turn up with their questions, but come to view. They're like a plant pot that's come along. They're not putting their roots down anywhere, but it says who flourishes, those that plant, they put their roots down in the house of God. And that's talking about local church. It's not talking about the big C church, because this is another big clever one that I think the enemy is deceitful with. You can be part of the big C church, and it doesn't matter if, you attend here one day, you go there another, let's try this one. But the big thing is, be careful to commit. And there's almost that fear to commit. But everything you need to grow and be fruitful, and we're back on this fruitful one again, is you got to get your roots down. You will not fulfill the potential you have unless you are part of a local church. But we're seeing now more and more people who want to 100%. Stand back and look, and almost like, does this tick the 10 boxes that we have as requirements, when it should be, are we called here? Is this healthy? We've always said in Freedom that we are not, we don't say we're a perfect church, because obviously as soon as you join it.
Hold on, we're not
No, I was going to say.
This breaking news. Freedom Church is not perfect.
We will never be the perfect church. And I say to people who come looking, for it, it's like, hey, as soon as you join it, we're not perfect. Because we're all imperfect. We're following the perfect Savior. But this is the difference, is we are aiming and we are determined to be a healthy church.
That's right.
Our family is not, was never really the perfect church. You come and when we were raising our boys, you wouldn't say, we're the perfect family. Sorry, stop trying to perform and impress people and compare. You will get in a place of comparison. Wow. But what we are healthy. We're a healthy family. There's something about healthy attitude. When we make mistakes, we're going to be healthy. When, even within our church, when we get it wrong, we can sit here and talk about our mistakes and failure. How do you keep growing? By sometimes making mistakes. You cannot grow without making mistakes. So you've got to overcome that. Is what you do with the mistake in learning to say, we're going to be better. We're going to improve. You mentioned that is this great attitude actually that America has, which is let's improve. Yeah. And even when something, I've noticed this, back home, I don't want to give a bad dishing out to the Brits, but I'm not at home in a minute, so I can do it. So
we're Brits, so we can say it.
I'm a few thousand miles away, but we tend to sometimes make do. Things can be a little bit, hey, couldn't we do a better job of that? Or it'll make do. But I've noticed here, particularly in Raleigh, I've been down to your town centre, the investment that's going on. I saw it a few years ago. It looked amazing then, but they've taken up some of that amazing to make it even better.
That's right.
And I think that really is what we're trying to do within the church. And you can only do that when people commit and they put roots down, and that's local church. So we're saying, hey, we're healthy church. We're healthy. And that means we will make mistakes because we're a growing church. You do not grow your children and get them to try new things and, see the best come out of them by just keeping them doing the same thing. And with it, they'll make mistakes. Well, you don't say, you are so stupid. How come you got that wrong? You don't say that to your kids. Say, let's try again. Let's do something more. And so we want a church where people can come into our church community and know that we will take risks because we're a growing church. We'll take risks on new leaders. We'll give new opportunity for people.
Yeah.
But all the time it's healthy, where we will have honor to one another, those above, those below, those we work alongside. We will honor and value everyone that comes in. And in that setting and atmosphere, there's going to be health and life. And that is something God's put in us. And you need, small church, local church, and people, God's design. And when you look in the New Testament and you look about the early church, nearly all of the examples, there's over 30 where church is used. That's all small church. It's not the big C church. But we're in a world right now that looks to the big C church. I can join online. I can listen to a message from churches around the world. That is not going to grow you.
That's right.
In a big way.
They don't know you.
Yeah.
You don't know them. You don't serve. You don't give.
Yeah.
You just consume the content that you want.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy.
And I'll say that it's a very strong statement, but you cannot fulfill all the commands that God gives you, right, in the New Testament as a new believer unless you are part of a local church. You cannot fulfill them. If you go through, I've studied it.
Yeah.
There are so many in there about being, in small group, in fellowship, in giving, in the way you grow and you grow others. You can't do it if you are just wandering around looking for the perfect church, the church that ticks your boxes. And that is just a delay tactic. And you might be someone just genuinely saying, we just want to make the right decision. I would say, hey, pray, get God to lead you in that and say, is this a healthy church? Normally, there's something that resonates within you. And I would also say this, if you want to see growth, you need to be in a church that challenges you, not a church that comforts you. Because we have, back home, we have a lot of people I speak to, and this is what they'll say. They'll say, we went looking for a church in our city, and we went to a lot of churches that we felt very comfortable. We came to Freedom, and we did not feel comfortable. We felt challenged. And so we decided, where do we want to grow? We want to grow in the place where it's going to challenge, because challenge brings change. Comfort tends to keep you stagnant.
Wow.
And those are the people that will come and join. And that's not for everyone. There are people that will come. It's like, you're too challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a personal trainer once who, he was an old school friend. He did me a good deal. But one of the problems was he was too nice to me. It's just like, give me the heavier weight. I can do more than this, or give me, but my flesh in the moment's like, hey, yeah, this is all right. I'm doing my exercise. But then at the end of the day, you were like, well, I didn't really get a lot out of that because he's not pushing me. He's not challenging me.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, well done. You've done well today. And I was like, I don't think I even broke into a sweat today. So you actually which one's going to make you grow more? The one that stretches you, challenges you, and gives you more. And I think that our church does that. But just coming back to that whole idea of people who come into the church, they're coming in for the first time, and they are looking for, they're basically, they see them. Do you match up, or what's on their lists? And no one can fully match up. It's like even when you're looking for a partner. People are looking for a husband, a wife, and if they got a list, and it's like, well, no one seems to match up to what your list is.
Yeah.
And it's like you actually need to throw away the list and actually just see, like, again, what's healthy, and go from that. And the people that I've seen come into our church that do really well, they're often people who come and they're like, there's something here, and I'm going to ignite. We plan to go around some other churches, but we found health here, and we're going to invest ourselves. They root themselves, and you see the impact in their lives. Yeah. Where those that come, and maybe they did shop around 1, 2, 3, I don't know how many churches they go to, and maybe they do decide, oh yeah, okay, this fits a number of things that we're looking for. That person still, even though they've made their decision now, they don't then throw themselves in. There's still something that they're holding back on, that commitment that you were talking about. And they do not, it's almost like they're in the like they've almost been put in the garden, but they're still in the pot in the
pot.
garden.
Yeah.
And it's like, you've actually got to break the pot. You've got to become a part of the soil. You've got to let the roots go down. And like I said, if you're someone who is, been shopping around, I think there's something unhealthy about that. By all means, if you go to a church and you don't feel comfortable there, or it's not right, then move on. Or if it's right, we're going to check out these 3 churches. But when you delaying and you're going,
that's a good point,
to church, so this person I mentioned earlier, she'd been going to another church for 8 weeks to test them, and then she come to the conclusion that she didn't like the preaching. So then she came to check us out, and it's like, you spent now 2 months just freewheeling, floating around. Where if she just gone to that church and said, right, I'm here, I'm going to give, I'm going to serve, how much more difference is she going to see in her life? There's this holding back of commitment, and the longer that you do that, almost like it keeps you in that place of wandering and just health.
I think one of the big things that I would sort of share with people is it's all about our approach. So your arrival depends on your approach. So someone who comes in looking for something wrong, looking for a list to be completed, do you know what, you're gonna soon find something wrong. It's like because you're coming in with that approach. And if we approach we're looking for a new church, or we're coming in to a small group situation, if it's always about what can I get from this, because that's what the person is saying, what can I get from this? Right, what value does it give me? Whereas I believe the way Jesus teaches about the church is that we need to approach it with, what value can I bring? And that is the big difference.
So good.
When we come and people say, well, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. It's like, what are you looking to bring? What value are you looking to bring to the bride, to the church, to the one that he laid his life down for, the one he cherishes every moment, the one he's got a plan for? Like, what you should be coming in and saying, what value can I bring to this community? What value can I bring to this group, to this volunteer group, the serve team? What value can I bring? It's a whole different way of looking. And as long as we keep looking about what value can I get, any disciple that tried following Jesus about what they could get didn't last. They weren't part of the team.
That's right.
It was the ones that said, what can I bring, Jesus?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's a big challenge. And the other bit I want to pick up on is what you said about, people going around traveling, looking for, let's go and visit here for a few weeks. Let's visit there. If you have been, I would say, for maybe more than a few months out of a church, as in you haven't been rooted into a local church, you've got to really ask some big questions around your accountability, about what you're looking for, about the reluctancy to commit. There's big questions you've got to ask. I think it could be reasonable if you moved into a new city, a new area, or you've decided we're shifting from one church to another. If that goes on longer than a few months, you should always set maybe 12 weeks to say, in this time, we're going to pray that God will lead us to a new family that we can be a part of. We believe that the church is important. We believe that this is the place of our greatest growth. So we're going to give a period of time. And if it's more than that, there is something wrong with how you're approaching the whole thing. And the longer that you're outside of community and small church, the more you will just go around looking. And it will just be something that you're a spectator, and it will be very hard to make the step when it comes to it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right. And I think about people that we've got people now who attend, and they attend every week. And we've got people around the world. Maybe you're listening to this right now and you attend every week, but there is a reluctancy of commitment in your heart. There is something that holds you back from saying, I want to be involved in a small group. We have more and more people now who attend church on a Sunday, but they don't serve. We have more and more people who come and they don't give. And there's something about each one of those things, they imply commitment. And a healthy people of God, they are committed. You know, when Jesus calls Peter, when he calls the disciples, what does he say? Follow me. I need absolute commitment from you to be my disciple. And like Peter literally lays his nets down.
Yeah.
He's like, he's just laying some nets down. What is representing is his livelihood, his business, his social life. He's a married man.
Yep.
Yet he's laying it all down so that he can follow Jesus, because that's the call of the Christian, is commitment.
Yeah.
It has to be. But there are lots of people in our churches right now listening to this that you're not living a committed life to Christ. Just because you attend church does not make you a committed Christian. And I think about those people, G, and hey, we've got a heart for you.
Yeah.
Well, our heart yearns for you. I tell you, we pray for you. We so want you to make those steps, because we know that those that lay down their lives, they're the ones who find it. It's the greatest thing you will ever do. But we're often so reluctant to actually make those steps of commitment.
Yeah.
Gee, for anyone who's in that situation, what are the things that we can actually do to break out of that?
Well, I can share a story of two couples, a true story of two couples that came into our church at the same time, and they were friends together.
Yeah.
Came in and joined our church. The one couple threw themselves in. Commitment. They didn't wait for a warm up. They basically just jumped in, both feet. And today that couple are like core. They're in the heart of things. They're living their most fulfilled life. They just love the church. They're on fire with the church. The other couple who the same time joined, reluctant. They were the ones that stood back, didn't really commit, withheld commitment. They attend but don't commit. And years on, they're in the same place. Then going back those years ago, they're still in the same place. And then they ask the question themselves, how come we haven't grown like our friends? And it's all because the one decided to commit and root in to serve the bride and get thrown in. The others decided, no, we want to attend, but we don't want to commit. And the one you see great fulfillment, the others are questioning that they have unfulfilled potential in their life. And it's with what you do. And on the back of this, as Josh said, we're speaking about this with conviction, because we know and we have seen so many people who commit, and you see the fruit in their life. And then we see the loss, really, of the people that stand back and they don't commit. And so this is because at our heart, it is to see the best that God has for you. And if we're just here saying, hey, we understand, busy lives, just stand on the outside with your plant pot, it's like, no, smash the pot. Smash the pot is taking a step and putting your roots down.
Yeah.
And I would say, even if you throw yourself in and give a few months, I've said this to some, because they're, I'm not sure. You just throw yourself and get involved into the life and the community of the church, you will see the difference in a matter of months. Like we've seen it all the time. You see the growth.
Transformative.
It's the most amazing thing. And perhaps, finishing what you asked me, it would be Ephesians, where, it talks about the church is the bride. And it talks about the love that Christ has for the church. It's a marriage. And people think, when he speaks, Paul speaks in Ephesians about the marriage. People think it's about marriage. He says, no, I'm talking about the mystery of the church. And I think it's so powerful, because what marriage would work? Who would want a marriage right now with someone that isn't committed to you and not bought in, that is half-hearted? And it's like, well, you can do that. I'm not really interested. I'll turn it when I can. I'll, oh no, I'm too busy for that. It's not a priority. What marriage would be fulfilled and successful? That is not a marriage. that's a transaction where people just come in for what they can get and then they leave. That is not what the bride is about. And I just want to say, if you want to see the most fulfillment of a marriage, what do? You commit.
Yeah.
Christ is fully committed to you. He laid down his life. He gave everything for you, for the church. And we are the church. That's who we are. You can't be separate from that. And so I think the challenge is, will you commit? Will you put your roots down? And you might think, well, it's going to cost me so much. I'll tell you what, it's going to give you so much. What value can you bring? Not what can you get from it. But in giving, God always outgives us. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, we've been part of the local church all these years. We love it more and more because we see the potential of people's lives being poured out. And it's the most beautiful thing, Josh.
It really is. Commitment, it costs you. You can't get away from that. It costs you. But you will never be able to outgive what God gives you. You just cannot do it. So you might think, well, it's going to cost me my time. I'm going to cost my vulnerability. It's going to cost me whether it's I start tithing. But actually, all the blessing of God comes from when we start to invest our lives, our hearts, our resources into his kingdom. Yeah. And you will see so much more. So I cannot say enough how much, just urge you, take a step where you throw, and I say take a step, I mean take a leap off the boat into it. Yeah. You can't just dip your toe in. You've got to jump overboard into this and say, enough of this. And I see people like this all the time, where it's like 12 months of their life goes by and they look exactly the same as they did a year ago.
Yes.
Because they have not committed themselves to, so they're attending church and they enjoy it, or maybe they get some things from the community, but they are not getting the fullness of what God has for them because they didn't commit themselves. Yeah. They don't show up to a small group. They don't go to Barbarians. They don't turn up to She. Maybe they don't, they just serve when it's convenient for them. You will not get the fullness of what God has for you. So I'm urging you, jump overboard. Our heart for you. Just throw yourselves in. If you can't do that with this church, please go find a church where you can do it and throw yourself in wholeheartedly, because that is how you get the maximum impact of this life that God has given you. You only get it once. Go and get it, the fullness of it, by being committed, throwing yourself in wholeheartedly.
Yep. Amen, Josh. Come on. We love it.
Oh, come on. All right. Well,
we are passionate about this, aren't we?
We are. It stirs us up.
Come over that way, but it's because we have spent years of seeing people waste this opportunity. And I've seen people on the fringe, and if they stay on the fringe for a certain time, at some point, something they don't like or something that is just indifferent, and you see them drift. And as you say, you just see waste. And it's that wasted potential, because often you'll find that that's the third place they've been on the fringe, the fourth place they've been. And it's when will people wake up and realize, actually, it's not the place you're going to, it's actually within you. And that's what God is challenging you with. You can keep moving on because you think, I don't know, I just feel like there's too much expected at the minute or too much challenge. I'll move on somewhere else. But God is wanting to grow you.
Yeah.
Coming back to the whole fruitfulness, that's his plan for you. Is for you to be and live a life that is fruitful for him and brings glory for him. That's what we answer for. But the way that we can release our biggest potential is through the local church. And it's decide, it doesn't have to be us, as you said. It's the local church that we can love, that we can add value to. Yeah. It's engaging in that and jumping in with both feet.
I met a great guy on Sunday after church, and then I saw him again an hour later. He was still there at the church, and he was helping the guys pack down. And it was his first Sunday, and you thought, watch out for this guy, because he's come one Sunday and he's got it. And I don't expect every new person, but when you've got people who've been coming to the church for a year and they've never lifted a finger to help and serve the greater thing, and then you've got someone like that, it's like, wow, watch out for this person, because that's the kind of heart and attitude which is they're going to see God multiplied through their lives.
I've noticed a sad thing as well is if we've been brought up in a Christian background, so we've been to church has been part of our life, it can become take it or leave it. We're sort of
Complacency.
very complacent, lethargic about it. And so going to a new church, well, I've seen it, I've been around it, and we've lost the passion. I feel like we lost the dream of what Christ had for the church. And that's really sad. So I see more people that are slow to engage or slow to commit. They're cautious because they've been around church, and it's just somehow they take it for granted. When I hear about this guy, I don't know his background, but I've seen these same people, the people that come, and we do 2 services, back home. And they'll sometimes, for the first time, they'll come to church and they are blown away. They come for the second one on the same morning, service, and then they're still hanging around at the end because they said, I've just
can't get enough
because they're not from a church background.
Yeah.
And they see something precious. And we see people, I've seen single mums who have got in the car with 4 kids, traveling half an hour to be in church and volunteer, like serve, because they said, there's something precious here and I want to be part of this community. So they're not thinking, what can you do for me? They're saying, I'd love to be able to give. And there's something about when we don't have that religious background that somehow has eroded things.
Yeah.
We forget how precious it is. And that's what you're talking about. So I want to be around this. You're not having to force me. Where can I help?
Yeah.
I just want to, who are you? Someone who's not even saved. Who are you? Well, I'm just here because I wanted to help. It's like, I tell you that Jesus is looking for that attitude. And some of us need to really, I think, repent of our attitude that is really dishonoring to the bride as just ordinary. Take it or leave it and come back with the freshness of she's a beautiful thing.
Amen. Amen. We've got to see the value of the church.
Yeah.
If Jesus died for the church, how much should we give our lives for the church?
Yeah, come on.
So I want to just say that if you are someone that this is you, we're talking about this, and there's something you've been holding back from commitment to his church, I want to encourage you. Your flesh does not want this.
Yeah.
Your spirit does. So your flesh does not want this. And you may start saying, right, I'm going to start getting involved. But then after 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, the flesh wants to, it almost wants to step back. It wants to recede again. It wants to step away because that's your tendency and your habit. So what you need to do, if you feel stirred up by what we've said today, I want to encourage you, get accountability. Say, hey, small group leader, hey, pastor, whatever it might be, but someone who's got authority that can speak to you and tell them, I need to commit. This is what it's going to look like. This is what you can expect from me. Because once we get someone speaking in and checking in and being with us on that journey, you're going to be so much more effective in being committed. Yeah. But I encourage you, don't just think, I'm going to try a bit more. You've actually got to get a new, you're almost trying to undo perhaps years and years of habitual thinking and the way that you thought about the church or the way that you engage with it. So you've got to throw yourself in everything you can, but also get accountability with it.
Yeah, another thing I would add is we've got a church full of all different people from different backgrounds. So we have doctors who do shift work. We have soldiers that are away for periods of time. And, we have people that are just not able to commit week on week. And what we've done though in our church is we've just made available, look, when you're available, we want a place for you to come and serve and be part. And I think that's been a barrier to some people. They will say, well, my shifts and my work doesn't allow it. And I'm a businessman that travels. Do you know what? When you're here, every one of our pastors, they are so ready to embrace you for what you're able to give. And even if it is once a month, it's a step. Because of your commitments. It's almost like what you're able to give, we are so grateful because someone on the other end is getting impacted. We're seeing them saved on a Sunday because you stepped up to do that. So I would say that if you have got extraordinary situation, maybe you're a single parent, maybe those things.
yeah.
It's find a way of just bringing what you can.
That's it.
Don't sort of dismiss yourself and think, well,
your
my
life doesn't
lifestyle,
fit.
because we will adapt and flex to that, because
Absolutely
we
right.
love our serve teams. We love our volunteers. It's what makes our church work. You know, right? Every Sunday, the life change we see is because of people like you. So, just want to shout out to all of you guys who are serving all around the world, making things
all the
happen.
committed people.
Yeah, every time I see commitments and hands go up, this past Sunday, saw so many people respond to the gospel. I know it's because of the people in the room that decided to commit. That's what it comes to.
Too right.
They committed. They walked in.
Couldn't do without
I
them.
can add value, and that value is creating eternal change for people's lives. And we get to see it, but we want you to know how precious you are.
Come on. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We'll be back next week for another one.